Welcome to the Spirit-Centered Business Podcast, where we blend the spiritual with the practical for supernatural results. Now, here is your host, Bralynn Newby.
Hello there. Welcome back to Spirit-Centered Business. I am here for part 2 with Peggy. But first of all, I want to just remind you, Quantum Capacity is starting again in March, and you can go to spiritcenteredbusiness.com to find out all about that. Building our inner world so that we can actually hold, receive, and be prepared, the prepared vessels that God needs to pour into our business. So that is Quantum Capacity starting in March, spiritcenteredbusiness.com. Okay, so part 1, Peggy, we went through your story. We heard a great testimonial all about bridging from trauma into leadership, and you're an amazing example of that. So let's talk about some legislation that you've been involved in and what's current and what's some interesting stuff from the past, or however you want to roll.
Yes. So just to kind of give you history of my background with doing legislation, I always had a love for politics. It's just one of those things. I love the debate. I love the dialogue. I just, I'm fascinated. And being an advocate, naturally, we want to change things. And so one of the best things to do changes in your culture is legislation. And that's for the bad as well. So being here in California, we see a lot of bad legislation.
Right.
So ironically, the two came together with the Bridge Network. So as I was forming Bridge Network, I was connecting, again, that's what we were doing, connecting with like-minded advocacy groups. And so we participated in this huge proposition called Prop 35, which was the Child Sex Trafficking Act, Exploitation Act, that was the highest passing proposition ever in California. So it's like 86%. It got passed by the people in California in a proposition ballot. So that was my first taste of doing policy changes. And I was the Placer and Nevada County rep for that measure, or it was a measure proposition, and gathering votes to get it petitioning. So I love that. It's almost a lobbying thing, but it isn't, because it's tied into my passion of advocating and speaking for justice for these youth that at that time there was no voice, and the exploitation was happened just, everywhere, and still going on today. So that's something close to my heart. And then when you bridge the two, it's awesome. And there's a lot of work because that proposition got undone because of other propositions that were passed, which basically allowed sex traffickers. So Prop 35 got the propositions or the human trafficking, specifically child exploitation. So this was really targeted for the minors that were being exploited. Their sentences was from 5 years to potential 25-year sentence. Well, all that got undone through Prop 4757, where they made basically human trafficking is no longer considered a violent crime, and so therefore that got brought down to a misdemeanor. So I know human trafficking, not a violent crime, really.
Wow, who thought that was a good idea?
Yeah, and so, and I don't know. I mean, again, a lot of propositions aren't always the best, well thought out, and also, they were just trying to make the prison populations go down. That was kind of the movement. And there's still this movement. And especially now today with the law enforcement, there's this distaste for law enforcement. And so I find myself in the middle of this again, which I love. I actually love doing this kind of work. So it's something that I'm passionate about.
All right, let's just call everyone to pray for Peggy right now, because thank goodness that you love it, because a lot of us hate it. Just cover
me. Yes. I mean, there's moments, like I said, there's moments where I just go, oh, I'm done. I'm going to just stick with, working with the clients. But then you see these new laws or things that are undone and you go, you guys, there's unintended consequences that happens as a result of policy, and it affects our culture. Well, we're to impact our culture as believers, and we think we're not supposed to be involved is something the enemy has lied to the church. Exactly. And so we really need to be involved, and we need to be aware. I can't take the day and day of it. I can't. That was actually hurting my spirit. So I was like, okay, he's going to bring what I need to know when I need to know it, and then I act, and that's it. And then I'm just going to let it go. Because being in that day-to-day stuff is it's negative. And I don't, like I said, it's something that I think I can have impact without having to be immersed in that kind of field. I already know the sex trafficking. I know the at-risk youth. I already know the trauma impacts of communities and family and some of the things that they're believing because of policies and what politicians are saying. And so I try to counter it in my own sphere of influence, which we all are called to do.
Right.
So the current day, and this again is based in California, but as California goes, so does the nation, sadly. And so we do have to kind of stake a place here and say, no, we are not going to tolerate this. And so we came together, myself and anti-trafficking organizations, faith-based, the Family Research Council with Greg Burt. He's actually spearheading that. And he called out and says, hey, you guys want to get involved in speaking what you think about this legislation. Basically, it's called SB 357, and it is essentially going to legalize prostitution. And what it does is it takes away the loitering component of the penal code, and that pretty much limits law enforcement from arresting anybody that's out on the street that we know is being prostituted. So it's basically decriminalizing prostitution. And so we want to know, is that something we want here in California? And I don't think we do. Now, advocates or proponents of this legislation, they're saying, and this is a common theme, is that people who are law enforcement are typically targeting people of color, Black, brown, transgender communities. And so unfortunately, they are the highly demographic exploited demographic. They are
that only makes sense, that the ones who are you know what I mean.
But this is true, but they're also the ones that are being exploited because they're the marginal. They're the ones who are already have a lot of barriers. So it makes sense that they're going to be the ones where law enforcement is going to be focusing on.
Exactly, right.
Because they're trying to harass them. They're trying to actually prevent them from being exploited even further. And so people that support this legislations are typically the decriminalization mindset folks. They're the people who are trying to pretty much empty the prisons right now. And so fortunately, God got us all together. We're part of a coalition. We don't have a name. We just formed in opposition to this legislation. But the good news is we're based all over California. And like I said, it was in opposition, but we're saying, hey, you know what? We got to start focusing on getting legislation to really target the sex buyer, the people that are exploiting. We need to really get off the victim, so to speak, and really focus on the sex purchaser, the sex buyer.
I think, that's a solution based rather than a Band-Aid.
Exactly.
Yeah. Good.
And so, and I'm not for, just so I have it on the record, I'm not for prosecuting prostitutes. And I don't like using the term prostitutes, but there are people who are sex workers. But studies show the sex workers are not there because they were children and they wanted to be a sex worker. They're there because they're in survival mode. They have a lot of trauma. And this is the industry that they have been groomed for and imprinted, sadly, through early childhood exploitation, either from a relative, friend, or as a child. And so sex workers, there is a movement of sex workers that support this. They're saying, you're taking our livelihood. And we're saying, hey, what about those that are being exploited who don't want to be doing that? And did you know there's other resources of what you don't have to go down this lot of life? And that's usually, they just resign to some of this. And so we're really trying to set the difference between those people and the people that are being exploited. And so when you legalize a sin, okay, this is what we're doing. We're legalizing a sin. There's consequences in the spirit realm. There's no doubt about it. And we see it. It manifests in so many different ways, from the brokenness of families, of marriages. Pornography is, all-time high, and it's accessible, and it's really deteriorating our society. So when a state as big as ours says it's okay, because it's legal in Nevada, prostitution is legal, and they have sex trafficking all the time. They have just as many cases as we do. And I'll give you a quick stat, because I don't want to emphasize too much on legislation, but in the county that I reside, there was 2,600 leads for child pornography, child abuse, or sex trafficking. Just like
what? Say that number again.
2,600 leads. This is
2,600.
Yeah. Leads. So those are reports of, and these are people that are reporting it. Okay. Because nothing happens. These are people that are luring kids. There's some kind of child in 2,600.
And how long of a time frame?
1 year. In 1 year, just last year.
Just last year. Wow.
So 2020 was unique because everything was online. There was some limitations, but it didn't stop any of the activities of human trafficking. I think it actually increased. And so, so we have to speak up. And so we have to say, hey, this is not okay. Loitering is that type of avenue, because if I can read it to you, basically, SB 357 repeals loitering for the purpose of engaging in prostitution offense in public areas. And so that pretty much gives a thumbs up for sex buying, right? In your business, on the streets. And so if we're okay with that, then we need to start looking at, why are we okay with that? Why is that okay?
Right.
So anyway, so that is something we're working on right now. It's at the governor's desk, or it's going to be delivered. So we are doing a push to have people sign. And now we just had a bunch of advocacy. We had over 1,000 supporters from agencies, survivors, community leaders that signed off of it. Now we just want people to bombard Governor Newsom's office, and just say, hey, veto SB 357. And that's coming up this month. So we're definitely wanting to get the word out and push it. And so that's one legislation. Again, you don't have to be a lobbyist. You don't have to be, you could just be a concerned mom, concerned business owner. You don't want to see this pop up. Once the loitering laws are repealed, law enforcement has nothing. They can do nothing. And those of you who are in California know how bad our homelessness is. And that's a direct result of laws where they passed in 2016 to allow tent cities, basically, so they could set up anywhere, and that's legal, and you can't kick them out. So that's why there's tent cities popping up everywhere. So we have to get engaged in our legal system, and we got to pray for our leaders. There's influences, and so we have to pray that his ear will open, like, oh, there's a lot of people against this. We need to do something different. And again, I'm not for any criminal activity for the acts of prostitution. I support a diversion route where they go and get resources, job training, etc., not a misdemeanor charge that's going to hold them up from really getting out of that lifestyle. So I wanted to share that. There's one other legislation that we're getting the word out, and this is an act. It's not, it's really to get the word out and put pressure on the tech companies. It's called the Earn It Act, and we're trying to get it to become an act. And this is a federal push. It's not so much a regional California base, but the Earn It Act is a bipartisan, and both Republicans and Democrats. This is the good thing. It's not a bipartisan, not a partisan issue, but it's to hold tech companies to the same standard that they're held by for the CSAM, which is child sex abuse materials like child pornography. It's just to keep them at the same standard. So, for example, internet trafficking occurs through, there used to be a site called Backpage, and that is down. That was taken down by a friend of mine, Maggie Crowell. She worked at the DOJ, and she was she was a prosecutor, and she took that company down, and now other ones start up. But that was a big push. There's Pornhub. You can find trafficking and solicitation of sex on the internet, no problem. And they have no problem having that out there. But yet, if you say something about COVID, or if you say something about, let's not to get political, but that we are talking politics, you say something pro Trump, whatever, you're going to get muzzled. But you can have somebody selling a person with sexual provocative pictures, and you've seen that, and you're on YouTube quite a bit, right, Bralynn?
I'm actually not, I'm not on social media very much, but I did get my stuff is out there, right? Not me personally. I don't go look.
Okay.
But and I got my stuff taken off of YouTube too for talking about the truth about the shedding and the implants that they put in, and they call it a vaccine, but it's not. All of that stuff. So I did get that taken off. So it's so disheartening.
It's disheartening.
That stuff gets to a free pass.
It does. And you can have explicit pictures. Like I said, I have a lot of clients that sometimes are still dabbling in the lifestyle, and we're Facebook friends, and I'll see them post, very provocative, and you obviously can tell they're pushing solicitation. And so it's like, it's very obvious. I see it all the time. And not because I'm looking, I just run into it and I go, oh, this friend, oh, that friend. And you just kind of see it. And that's out there all the time. And these are very young people. And so, but as soon as you say sex trafficking, I'm sure with my statement of sex trafficking, you will be censored to a certain degree. When I ran for school board last year, 2020, not 2021. My opponents are talking about my sex trafficking work and advocacy work, and they were calling us conspiracy theorists. Yes.
Wow, they clearly don't understand the meaning of the word. Hello.
So I got put in Facebook jail as I was trying to do my campaign, and because they were, that's who I am. That's the work I've been doing. And so I was in Facebook jail. I couldn't do boosting or anything like that on social media. So it was just ironic to go, okay, so you're going to go after me on this, but I can see somebody's butt right now and they're smacking it, or they're being very provocative. So this Earn It Act, it needs to be, I'm very pro First Amendment. But when there's exploitation, okay, we're going to shut that down. We agree. We don't have children exploited. We don't have provocative pictures our culture is cultivating that. And I don't know if
Right.
you recall the Netflix show called Cuties. It was basically, they were exploiting adolescents, and they were not even adolescents. I think they were like 7, 8, 9.
Oh my gosh.
And they were doing strip dances basically. And that's a Netflix show. And so our culture is cultivating this very sexualized manner. And so there needs to be some limits. And like I said, there's a balance between First Amendment rights, speech. But when it comes to children, no, we just shut it down, but it's not happening. And so this Earn It Act, if you want to learn more, I'll give Bralynn the link and she can learn more about, or you can learn more about it, but this is a national campaign. So if you read the bill, you'll see that the arguments against it is pretty much meritless about the languages that they use, but it's clear there's subtle ways of talking about soliciting sex. So those are the two big ones that are on our focus right now, that I'm pretty passionate about, and how they, we want to get this. We're going to have to deal with a lot of these issues because we are sexualized, and it's something that we as the church have to find solutions to. How do we handle all these clients that have all this trauma? It's 1 in 4 clients have sexual trauma, and it's not just from trafficking. It's just from the bullying, from suicide, from substance abuse use. There's many things that are causing a lot of, we're going to need to have answers for, as a body, as believers, as those of us entering in this age where we have to be the solution. And so we have to look into different methods,
Well,
and getting laws aligned in those areas.
and also it's very important for us as business owners because we're the funding for these kind of movements. So we have to be able to build our business to the place where we can impact the kingdom from a financial standpoint to support stuff like this, right?
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important to, I'm going to come back to quantum capacity again, because God has more to pour into your business if you're ready to receive it. And so if we can do that in our business, that's the reason why. It's not to make money for ourselves, it's to build the kingdom. And things like this coming against the kingdom of darkness is building the kingdom, right? That's the point of us being in business, so that we can take that territory back. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So now we don't have too much more time, but I do want you to be able to tell people what is your new venture, and then you have a gold nugget or two for us, right?
Okay. Yes, I'll give you a couple. So in my work with a lot of and my own personal journey, again, recovery, I started a wellness company, and it's called Call to Wellness. And we're incorporating a lot of modalities that are outside what we call mainstream. Typically, what the solution for trauma is: trauma therapists and medication. Okay. I'm not against medications, but they are abused and addictive, and they bring other issues. So most medications are meant to be used like immediate need, not every day. And so medication is not the solution. It is a temporary Band-Aid for when things are so, you had a major life event, your house burned down, you're going to need some probably external things to help you through. But the good news is neuroscience, and a lot of the brain information that we're getting it's just amazing, the stuff that we're learning about the brain. When I went to, because I was a nursing student, when I went to school and I learned about the brain functions, were taught that, once the neurons are gone, they're done. That was it. Well, no, that's not true. The brain is resilient, and the brain can learn new pathways. And so Call to Wellness incorporates 3 things, actually. We're focused on lie busting, which you guys are pretty familiar with, because Bralynn and I are part of that lie busting. So we attack the lies. We do it in a spiritual way, and most of us are believers. But I've done secular lie bust, and we still get the same concept, because we are spirits, right? We are spirit, we are body and mind. And so they all intertwine, just like the Holy Trinity. It's a beautiful concept when you think about it, how it's all threes. So we have the lie busting techniques that we utilize. I'm a health coach too. Again, I've been healthcare for so long. I did get certified as a health coach and I use that in Bridge Network. I use it with Call to Wellness. And it's not like a business or I'm charging and promoting. It's just those are the practices that we implement. But the latest brain health techniques that we've learned is all about the neuroscience and neurokinesis, and how we can offset our reactions and instead of just responding to a trauma. And so somebody who's in chronic state of trauma, where they're just at that, from 0 to 10, they're at an 8 in this chronically in this. And that's very common with people that are sufferers of sexual trauma. They're in a complex trauma state. So their cortisols are going, they're just in a heightened state. And so any triggers can set them off, because they're already at that level. So we have to teach them some other techniques. And there's so much from Eastern medicine that we've learned. And believe it or not, Christianity is an Eastern religion. So
Yeah.
we think it's the West, but it really is an Eastern basis. But so I want to show you guys just a simple thing, and this is all biblical based. So one of the techniques that we do, and we actually taught kids to do this. So they do this with each other. We teach our youth, hey, when you get into a state of anxiety, which anxiety is at all-time high right now, which is a natural emotion, God-given emotion. So we need to know that it's not bad. Anxiety is not bad. It's a warning to say, hey, we have something to deal with. We need to address something. Or it could be real, which is where, we can bust a lie, or it could be a lie. And so the brain doesn't differentiate. So I want to teach you a quick technique, and you can do it right now. If you're going through something and you just need to laugh, it's called laughing technique. Release your joy. Sing. This is all biblical. The joy of the Lord, right? I mean,
Right.
This is Proverbs. And so we need to always go back to what the scripture says. The scripture says, is like, I rejoice in my suffering. How can I? Because the word says to do that. Well, as soon as you're feeling heavy, you start laughing. So just start laughing with me. I'm going to just think of a place, go there, close your eyes, of where it was the most fun place. You're with girlfriends, just kind of close your eyes, and you guys are having a grand time. You are starting to laugh uncontrollably. You just start laughing, and you're releasing endorphins right now. You're changing your mindset. Just start laughing with me and going there, Bralynn. I want to see you get a shifting. All right, let's laugh. Can you remember you were laughing so hard that you were crying? Okay, now, how do you feel?
My meter.
There you go.
I moved my meter up. Up the dial.
There you go. So if you do that every day, let's say, especially if you're in a crisis, you're going to release endorphins. You're training your brain not to respond or not to react, but rather to respond to what you're training it to. And so that's a technique, simple technique. These are really fundamental, and they're also biblical principles. Another one is diaphragmatic breathing. Tell me if we have enough time and I can show this.
Sure, let's do breathing. I love breathing too. Here's something to laugh about. Bralynn's hair with its own mind of its own.
Oh no,
it could be worse.
I love it. You've got thick hair like I do. I have such horse hair. We got horse hair.
Yes. Okay. So I have a position open for a stylist and a makeup artist. Anyway. Okay. So tell us the diaphragmatic breathing, which by the way, I'm a singer, so I typically tend to do this anyway.
Okay. So, this is called the 5-10, 5-2 rule. So, Dr. Amen, he teaches this in his program, and it's, somebody who likes numbers or can relate to certain systems. A 5-10-2 rule is something that I think is easy to remember, because when you're in the middle of your anxiety attack or you need to calm yourself, this is a perfect thing to do. So you put your hand on your chest, and let me see if I can demonstrate. So your hand, and then the other hand on your belly. And so the diaphragm is the big muscle here that pushes, right? So we don't use it. When you're in panic, anxiety mode, it's all upper breathing, right? It's shallow. So we got to stop it. So this is how we train ourselves. There's real simple techniques that, for whatever reason, we're not teaching to the church. We're not teaching to our kids, but they're in anxiety mode. So we teach them this. So you put your hand on your chest and your hand on your belly, just so you're getting the full breathe. So you're going to take 5 deep breaths for 5 seconds, and you're going to hold for 2 seconds. And then you're going to, so go ahead. Hold for 2 seconds, and then you're going to blow out. Feel your belly lift up for 5 seconds. Hold.
So you don't breathe 5 times and then hold. You just take 5 seconds to breathe once.
Yeah,
and then hold 2 seconds. Got it. Okay.
Exactly. One deep breath.
Got it.
So you can.
And technically, your chest should not be rising, and your shoulders and everything rising. It's all about your abdomen rising. Although I had visions of us patting head and rubbing tummy and.
Well, that's another technique, but like I said, you guys have to call me, and we'll do another one at another time. So that's just to get you centered so that you can start to breathe and not shallow breathe, which is where it's going to continue into this state, and you'll get into tunnel vision. And then we can't reason at that point, because the brain needs oxygen. So you need to fill the brain with oxygen when you're in that state. So that's why you do that. And if you do that every day, maybe as soon as you get up, breathe in and get that belly out. You can't see my belly, but it should be sticking out. And that's why you put your hand on there, and then you hold it, and then you start again. And that will help with anxiety right away, as soon as you're feeling an anxiety attack. But those are kind of the modalities, techniques that we can use that has nothing to do with prescription. It's not cognitive behavior therapy. We're not doing any of that. These are just simple techniques you can do on your own. And that's the good news. That's what I love about lie busting. That's what I love about Dr. Amen's and all his modalities, is that we just coach you how to do it, and then you do it, and you're setting yourself free, and then you show other people.
Is the call to wellness open for everybody, or is it just for trauma?
Everybody.
Okay.
No, it's for everybody. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we will definitely put that in the show notes so that people can get a hold of you, because definitely we run into that as business owners, that we have to get ourselves reoriented back into reality, because when our higher functions shut down, nothing happens, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So thank you, Peggy. I don't know when I'm going to lose my mic again, but thank you so much for everything. This has been so good. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome.
What you do too. Love you, girl. I lost you. Okay. Well, I think we are ending the session. So I'll put all of the information that we talked about, and Bralynn will post it on the channel. Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hey there. Sorry about that awkward ending when my battery died on my microphone. I just came back to tell you my usual ending. Until next time, stay spirit-centered. Peace out.
Thank you for listening to Spirit Centered Business with Bralynn Newby. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. The next stage of doing business by being spirit-centered is coming together in collaboration, working with spiritual principles and knowing our destiny. Join our tribe at spiritcenteredbusiness.com, and we'll catch you on the next broadcast. Peace out.